I'd like to thank you all for coming. As you know, there's been a proposal to close the Westlake Courthouse effective as of November 30th. And this has generated quite a bit of conversation and discussion. That's because of the concerns that the people have. That Judge Saldani and Judge Blaze-Ward, presiding judge and assistant presiding judge, have very graciously agreed to be here tonight to answer questions and explain the rationale for the closing and so forth. First of all, though, I'd like to just introduce some of our dignitaries and invited guests. At the front table here is Judge Joseph Saldani, and to his right is Judge Dale Blade, Supervisor Tom Weir, I think most of you know. If you don't, he'll be glad to introduce himself. And we have retired Judge William Shetler, Westlake resident, former Los Angeles County Superior Court judge. Melanie Barker from the president of the Chamber of Commerce, which coincidentally is also co-hosting this and has provided the coffee and cookies back there, so take advantage of it. We have several representatives from the various agencies. We have Bonnie Thomas, who is the Superior Court Clerk of the Court. And the Assistant Court Clerk, Amy Downey, is here. Thank you, Amy. And the Superior Court Manager, Christina Wyatt, is here. Yes, there she is. Todd Spangler, who is the Supervising Deputy District Attorney, is here on behalf of the DA's office. Paul Hornick and Sally Moreno, who are running for the District Attorney. I believe we're, well, Paul Hornick, I don't see, but I believe he was going to be attending. And from the Madera County Sheriff's Department, we have representatives. And we have Manuel Perez from the Madera County Department of Corrections. So without any further ado, I'd like to call on Annette Beaumont, who's chair of the event and our immediate president of the Bar Association.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming to discuss this very important issue. The Eastern Madera County Bar Association provided the court with some objections to the closure of the Westlake Courthouse. You'll find those on the back table. There's copies of them, as well as there's a stack of letters, comments to the court, which if you'd like to fill those out. We've also got a copy of the Judicial Council report from the prior year. And with those, we can take a look at those when we get a chance to provide your comments. Within the Bar Association's letter to the court, we have addressed a couple of very important issues. And those relate to the drastic measures of closing the Westlake Courthouse. It should not be done for many of the following reasons. It lacks transportation to the Madera Courthouse, and that is there's simply no bus public transportation that we can get to the courthouse to provide for nearly an 8:30 court appearance. Also, our community is increasing. We have 3 new hotels coming in. We have a county center coming in. And with that, we can imagine that our crime is decreasing and litigation increasing. The extended amount of time and travel with substantial increase in attorney fees that the community would have to absorb. And this will have an adverse effect on the boundary communities. Lastly, just a few years back, the Westlake Courthouse was only open for 2 days a week. Eliminating the types of cases that require a high level of security, such as custodies and jury trials, would be an issue that we really need to look into and address before a full closure of the court. 2 days a week would be a great thing for our community, especially given that no court in our mountain community would be a drastic measure. These are just a few of the issues that the member of the Bar Association would like to get some feedback here tonight. Thank you for your time.
I'd like to call on Judge Saldani now to give a few remarks and explain what position.
So, thank you for the opportunity of letting me here and having an opportunity to speak with you. If you can't hear me, let me know sometimes my voice trails off.
Turn the mic down.
Is this better? So, as judges, you may or may not know, we don't spend a lot of time out talking to the public and getting input and those sorts of things. We spend a lot of time in the courthouse and the chambers reviewing motions and in the courtroom selecting juries and doing trials and handling motions. So we don't get a lot of opportunity or time to get out and talk to folks, so unfortunately it has to be this issue that has drawn us out, but it's an opportunity and I look forward to talking with you. So we have some issues with the courthouse. We looked at those issues and basically determined, because of those concerns, that it is no longer viable to use that building as a courthouse at this time. There are several issues. The main focus and the main issue is it's not safe from a security standpoint. There are a number of things with that building. This building was originally constructed back in 1974. There are issues with the building, with the security, how it's laid out, with the windows, the access, and other things. Additionally, with how the courtroom is laid out, the proximity of the jury box to the folks and the parties, it's not a safe situation. And so we looked at that. There's additionally some issues regarding judicial resources and the assigned judges program that kind of played into the decision, but the majority of the basis for the decision, even if everything else went away, is that it's not safe. It's not safe for the people that work there. It's not safe for the folks that come in to court to have their matters handled. It's not safe. It's as simple as that. We had some issues that were raised with us a few months ago. We then had the Judicial Council security folks that are in charge of security come out and look at it. And they told us that it was not safe, that there's some things that we shouldn't be doing and we can't be doing. So we decided based upon that to close it. And we are going to close it November 30th. We sent out a notice letting everybody know that we're closing it and why we're closing it. So we've had a lot of input from the community and we appreciate that input. I don't think there's anything that's been communicated to us that we were not aware of at the time we made the decision. It's a great, extraordinary inconvenience and hardship on the folks up here. We understand that. There's going to be difficulties in getting the folks and the cases and those folks that have those cases to Madera and having an opportunity to hear those matters. I want you to know we're not excited about closing the courthouse. We didn't want to close the courthouse. Historically, as you may recall, we've had some hard times in California. The finances were not there. And instead of closing the Bass Lake Court, we kept it open. We went to layoffs, or not layoffs, but for days off for staff. They had to take days off. But we did not, which we certainly could have if we wanted to save money, close the courthouse at that time, but we didn't. It's important to us, just like it's important to you. But when you come to the point where you realize that it's no longer a safe facility you have to close it. I'm sorry. There have been suggestions, and we've had many suggestions. We've heard from the Bar Association, we've heard from the Chamber of Commerce, we've probably heard from many of you. I've talked with some folks tonight about their concerns. We're aware of those concerns. We know that. We wish it wasn't so, but we have to close the facility. We'd be happy to listen to any additional things you folks have to say. I want you to know that we've been working with the county, specifically Tom Wheeler and the folks at the county. Before we took this step, we went to the Judicial Council and we said, we've got these issues. We need some money. We need to get on your list of facilities for upgrades, for improvements. They said, sorry, we already have our list. We're not changing it. We went to the county and we said, look, we've got a need for funds to make some improvements and to take care of the safety issues with this building. The county says, look, we've got our projects lined out. We don't have enough money for the projects that we want to do, much less to add the courthouse to that. So it wasn't as though we didn't try to locate those funds and try to get some assistance from these folks. We did. And we've come to the realization that at this point, we don't have any funds available. The court itself doesn't have any funds. We rely on the state and on the counties to provide funds for capital improvements. So, with that in mind, let me tell you, we are aware of your frustrations. We are aware of the concerns that you have for the hardships and the inconvenience that it's going to be. But until we can get a safe facility up here, we're not going to continue to operate it. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't want a courthouse up here and that we couldn't operate a courthouse up here if it was safe. This is just a measure that's required to be taken at this time. We're looking at some things. We've been working with the county, with Tom and his folks to maybe try to mitigate the closure. Some of the things we've talked about is having additional transportation that's convenient to the folks up here that will go down to the courthouse, drop folks off at a convenient time, and pick them up at a convenient time. Maybe an express run, so they're not stopping at every other major intersection. So I think the county is looking at that. They're looking to see if they have some funds, and that might help some of the folks do that. The other thing that we're doing is we continue to meet with the county regarding monies for improvements, and we are continuing to address with the Judicial Council our needs. Most recently, within about the past week or two, and Ms. Thomas can tell you more about that, we've been informed by the Judicial Council. I don't know why. I'm sure it's not because of anything we said, but they've decided to go and reassess all of the capital needs throughout the state, county by county. Well, as you know, we have 58 counties, so that's not going to be something that's going to be done very quickly, but at least they're going to come and look at our county. And so one thing that we would like, and I'm sure you folks would be amenable to that, is the Bar Association, the Chamber of Commerce, the county board, and the folks that work at the county, is to let's let those folks know that we have these needs, that it's important to us, that the folks up here are being shortchanged. And let's see if we can't put some pressure on them to come up with some funds to correct this. Now, I don't know how many of you know Judge Blade, but he likes to talk, and so he hasn't been able to talk right yet at this point. But I'd like him to address some things we're looking at. There's something called a remote video broadcast that we've been looking at. We've talked to the county about maybe getting a location and some funds for doing that. And Judge Blade, you want to come up here right there? And then when he's done, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
It might be a while. So, how many many folks do know me. I've been here for 29 years. I've lived up here since 1992. You know, before I get into the remote video proceedings, which is the program that Judge Saldani referred to, I wanted to emphasize that we're not taking this issue lightly. It's not something that I look forward to doing, certainly. I've heard a lot of misinformation around town, on social media, and other places about just why we're closing the courthouse. And one of the things that I've heard that just is not true is that we can't find a judge who's willing to sit up here. I'll tell you, I've been elected the presiding judge to begin my term in January of 2019. So I've had judges come to me and say, look, if you want me to sit up in Bass Lake, I'll do it. We've had numerous judges, several judges, come to me and express an interest and a willingness to sit in Bass Lake if the court were able to be remain open. Additionally, I want to emphasize that we've worked with the county to arrange for expanded public transportation to the port. One of the issues that Ms. Beaumont raised was public transportation, and Judge Saldani touched on this. I want to make sure everybody understands that we have spoken with the county, and the county is receptive to expanding public transportation so that persons who are called to Madera for jury duty have public transportation available to them. Previously, the earliest you could get to Madera was like 10 o'clock in the morning, I think. That's going to change so that persons who are called to jury duty in Madera can get there on time. Also, the drop-off site for public transportation in Madera was, I think, the bus depot, which is a distance away from the courthouse. That's going to change as well. The county has agreed to establish a drop-off site at Courthouse Park, which is directly across the street from the courthouse. So those are a couple of things. And another issue that Judge Saldani raised and discussed was the video remote proceedings. Now, we've been using video remote proceedings in Madera for many years, but we've limited it to arraignments, and we have conducted arraignments of in-custody defendants from our jail, and we do arraignments of in-custody individuals who commit crimes in one of the state prisons in our county. And the way the video remote proceedings work is the judge is in his or her courtroom. He's able to view the defendant, who is either at the Madera County Department of Corrections or at one of the prisons in our county. And at the same time, the defendant is able to see the defense attorney, the prosecutor, and the judge on a split-screen monitor at the facility at which the individual is incarcerated. And we complete the arraignments in that way. And it occurred to me doing an arraignment one day as this whole closing of the court and how we could alleviate the impact of Eastern Madera County was on my mind, that why can't we expand this process into other proceedings? So I looked into that and I found out that Fresno County was a pilot, was part of a pilot program that created video remote proceedings for infraction traffic matters. And so I contacted the presiding judge in Fresno County, with whom I have a good working relationship with, spoke to him about that program, and he is willing to not only meet with me specifically regarding that program and how we can implement a similar program here in Eastern Madera County, but also to get our IT people in connection and in touch with their IT people. The whole reason that whole program was started in Fresno County was because the remote courthouses in that county have closed. All of the courthouses are now, I don't know if I believe it's every remote courthouse is now downtown. All the remote courthouses have closed. Specifically Coalinga and Mendota. Those two remote courthouses closed several years ago. And to address the needs of that community, Fresno offered a pilot program to the state for video remote proceedings. And And so it's a similar situation to what we have here. It's worked very well and very effectively in Fresno County, and we see no reason why it can't work effectively here. Another hope that we have is once we get the traffic infractions addressed through video remote proceedings, that we expand it to other types of hearings, small claims, limited civil matters. Those are two types of proceedings that come to mind immediately that I think would lend themselves very well to that type of proceeding. So that's what we're working on. That's what I have specifically been working on. We've been meeting with judges, not only in Fresno County, Judge Simpson, but in the Merced County as well. They have a similar program that they're implementing with some success, and I intend to meet with the judges in that county as well. I echo Judge Saldani's statements that, you know, it wasn't a decision that was taken lightly. It's not something that we said, oh, let's just close the court. Well, when I took the bench, one of the things that I looked forward to was sitting up here in my court. That was the first court that I ever appeared in. I don't relish that court closing in any way, shape, or form. I don't relish it because I'm a resident up here. I know what it means to the community. I also echo Judge Saldani's statements and concerns about the safety of the building. And ultimately, that has to be our primary concern. We don't want to look back on a situation that happens at Bass Lake that we knew about, that we knew we could have avoided. And we have to look in the faces of victims and say, sorry, we knew it wasn't safe, we didn't do anything about it. So notwithstanding the inconvenience, notwithstanding the history of that court, that's a long history. We looked at options. We're not talking about a few $1,000 fix. We're talking millions of dollars to fix the building, to get into the condition that we need to be in to be a safe facility. There was a report done several years ago that addressed, to some degree, on a limited basis, what would need to happen in order to make the court safe. One of the things that is in courthouses throughout California is something called ballistic glass. You cannot put ballistic glass on the skeleton of the courthouse as it is. It wouldn't support it. The glass is so heavy that it wouldn't be supported. So effectively, when we talked to the people from the Judicial Council, what they said was, the only thing that we can do with this building is knock it down and start over. And that's just not feasible. We don't have the money to do that. So we are working, including working to address the inconveniences and to minimize them as much as we can. And that's through the remote proceedings, that's through the expanded public transportation. That's where we stand with this project. That's where we stand with the issue. If there was anything that could be done beyond that, I assure you we do it. That's what I have to say about video remote proceedings. Where do you want to go from here?
Well, thank you, Judge. I believe we had a few people who wanted to make some remarks. Melanie Barker from the Chamber of Commerce, who's co-hosting this, and then we'll be calling on Supervisor Weaver. After that, we'll be taking questions from the audience.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your evenings to be here and discuss such an important issue. My name is Melanie Barker. I'm the president of the Oak Ridge Chamber of Commerce. And it's our pleasure to help support this event this evening so that you all can understand what's happening, what's going to happen in the process ahead. I think we all know in an unincorporated area, we don't have a lot of central government, and by de facto, the Chamber of Commerce tends to be that entity for our community. And so, of course, we're obviously very concerned about what's happening when we lose any sort of support services, government support services to our community. So thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Madeline. Supervisor Tom Wheeler.
I don't know what I should say. I don't like it. That's the first thing. I've lived up here a long time, since 1958, and we moved here to Oakhurst first. And at the end of that year, we moved to Norfolk, and we got a courthouse over in Norfolk too. Most people probably don't even know that. And when we met with the judges, I was explaining some of the history to them. And we had one here in Oakhurst, right here in the corner of 426 and 411. Now, after all those went away and consolidated and went, we got the one at Bass Lake, and I didn't know what the bill was, 1974, I guess. And, it just hurts to see it close. It's just so important for our people up here. I sit on the San Joaquin Air Pollution Board, and we do video conferencing from right there at the main office. Every one of our meetings in Fresno. We got an office in Bakersfield and one in Merced. And so we video conference all of our meetings and everything. It works pretty decent. And then we got what we were doing here in Oakhurst with the county before I was elected. And we video conferenced from the county up to the junior college. And had our meetings up here, so we always had to drive all the time to do that. And so when they mentioned that the other day when we met with them, I thought that was a great idea. And they also asked me about the busing. I happened to sit on the transportation committee, and so we manage all the busing with Madera City and Chowchilla too, also on the transportation committee. And so we got to start that process if we want to start doing that. It won't come up overnight, and we got to find the funding and everything for that too. And when they were talking about that, either Dale or Andy, whatever, one of them said something about that study they did about the danger of the building when Waylon was still here. He called me, and when I first got elected, and said, "Hey, we've got these problems up here." And so I went up and met with him, and he showed me the new fencing we had to do, and the bars and whatever. I've got all of what he wanted, and that we had enough extra money in our budget that we fix those. But when they come up with this plan and realize how they feel it's so unsafe that we didn't have nothing close to that kind of money, it's going to be discretionary to be able to fix a courthouse. One of the things that we did when we built the new sheriff office in the firehouse in Oakhurst over on 49, we also bought that extra lot that's level out in front of the sheriff's office, and that's what's going to be our future government center up in Oakhurst instead of up at Bass Lake. And so that's one of the first things we started talking about as a board. Now that this is closing, that maybe we ought to start pushing that and build the courthouse and our government center both, so we have all that up here for all of us, so we don't have to drive down to the air. Sitting on the air board, like I said earlier, not only the video conference, but we try to eliminate all the traffic we can, all the driving and stuff, because 85% of our pollution right now is caused by cars and trucks and locomotives. So anytime that we have to put more people on the road, it just adds to that, to the airport, plus the safety on 41. And I just saw an article in Fresno V a couple days ago about expanding the road from 12 to 15, past 15 little ways. We've been pushing that for years, and there's nothing in there in the Caltrans plan to expand 41 from 145 to Oakhurst. There's nothing in their plan to the 1930s. So that's given, and they're like the judicial arm of the government. They trump county. The judicial courts do, the Caltrans do. And so all we can do, just looking on my notes, is take what they've been writing, is take what we have and work with them to try to get, at least make it convenient for the people with the busing or the video streaming. I like that idea, and doing that because we can, and then also when we're talking about the busing, you know, they stop so many places that by the time they have to leave here at 4 in the morning, they get down there by 8 or 9 or 8:30, whenever. I think they told me 8:30, they have to be down there with the jury and stuff. That would, we'd need a gathering place up here, maybe one at Bass Lake where the court is, maybe one at the court school, so everybody could go there and the buses just stop maybe twice. And Norfolk, we have to drive down, say, 200 to the parking right there. There's a lot of options, a lot of ways to do it, but it's, you know, it came so suddenly that we haven't had no really chance to even put it on our agenda yet as the board of supervisors. So we're willing to work and go after any questions that I might have on this. It's not a lot, but I've already got a big file on it. I know that, so I'm anxious to hear what you guys have to say. So, yes, that's mine. Thank you. I want to thank Manhattan, Melanie, and Jim, and stuff for getting this going. As soon as they got hold of me, they actually said they were going to do it Thursday night, and I couldn't be here. And they changed it to the night, so I just want to thank you for that. So I thought it was important that I be here. I represent you, and I want to try to do everything I can to help us make this transition as easy as we can. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right, now we will have an opportunity for questions from the audience, and we have a portable handheld mic out there. So as soon as he figures out how to make it work, he'll hand it to you.
Guys thinking that's not working.
These are lawyers, so they'll figure that out.
That's it. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Barbara Liss. I'm a legal document assistant. I live here in Oakhurst, and I help a lot of people in the mountain communities. I work with a lot of elders, and needless to say, they're quite disappointed to hear about the closing of the courthouse. I'm concerned because I don't want them driving on Highway 41, if at all possible to avoid it. I think some of them are kind of dangerous drivers. And I have a cataract problem, and I don't want to be driving in the dark either. But on top of that, my concern is that this seems very sudden, and that if there was an issue about money, it seems to me that if we had a little bit more advance notice, that perhaps we could have done something in the community. I'm going through my voter ballot right now, and I cannot believe how much money is being asked for in the way of bond measures, and it seems to me that I certainly would be more inclined to vote for a local bond to support the safety of this courthouse, and to provide funding out of tax money, or a bond to keep the courthouse open. If we had the opportunity to do that, if we had a year ago put a bond measure on the ballot during the last election process, or even on this current voting process. But now we don't even have the opportunity to do that. And I'd like to know why it seems to be happening so fast, and why we can't keep the courthouse open at least until we can get a petition going or a bond measure on the ballot. That's the question I have.
Thank you. Good.
So that's an excellent question. Thank you for that. The problem on the timing is it really hasn't been as quickly as you may feel it has been, because what happened is you got the notice when we made the determination to close it. We've been working on it for some time. We've been trying to look for solutions. We've been trying to look for funds. We've been trying to look for alternatives. And at every place we went and sought funding, the door was not open. So it wasn't like, okay, we got a problem, close it. We got a problem, what can we do to fix it? We looked at a number of things to do that, and they all end up being wants to do it. So I appreciate it, you know, once you determine the facility's not safe, it's not appropriate to keep it open for another year or two in order to try to attempt to get those funds. We don't have a method as judges and as the court to go out and visit with folks in the community like this. That's just not what we do. We base our decisions on the information that we had. We did everything we felt we could do to avoid this. We're at the point where we can.
How early did you actually contact the county?
Move your hand, we got a microphone going
Got a
around.
microphone behind you.
My voice is adequate.
No, we got somebody before you.
We'll get you next.
Good evening, I'm Tina Rodriguez, Program Manager for the Victim Services Department at Community Action Partnership of Madera County. And first I want to thank Supervisor Wheeler for clarifying a lot of confusion in the community. The notice was fast and several of us were getting messages and pressure to do something, but it was misunderstood where we can go to voice our concerns, and he was very helpful in providing that clarification. And secondly, I hear about the safety of the structure, and I definitely understand that. One of the things that's my concern is the safety of the crime victims in Madera County, specifically this area. The California Office of Emergency Services funds our department, and they did allow us to establish a satellite office here because the need is that great. So I hear about the possible solutions you might put temporarily in place with video conferencing, and I would like for you to consider the department, most importantly, the population that we serve. For example, if you're going to consider video conferencing, would you consider that for victims of domestic violence that would be at high risk if they were to take an express run in public back and forth? I just want to be included in those discussions if possible to advocate on their behalf.
So Judge Blake can talk about that. That's something that he's looking at as well.
That's near and dear to my heart, what you just talked about, Ms. Rodriguez, and I want to address that. As far as video conferencing goes, one of the things that we can do is make the video conferencing with self-help advocates and with our victim services advocates also available through video conferencing. So somebody who wants access to self-help, if they need a restraining order, if they need help with legal documents, they can contact our self-help once we have it set up and actually video conference with them and help these people to get the required documents they need and get them filed with the court. You know, you mentioned how important victims' rights are and how victims are, and I couldn't agree with you more. One of my frustrations as a judge is sometimes when I'm sentencing, I've used this term, and for the attorneys who have been in my court, when I'm sentencing somebody, I've said it, I'm going to say it again, I feel anemic. Because I cannot give justice, I cannot provide justice to the people who are the victims of crimes, and those are the people that you're serving. You know, people think that as a judge, you finish your day, you step off the bench, you finish your sentencing, you do what you do, and you go home, and it leaves you. It doesn't. There are cases that live with you. There are 3 cases that particularly stick out in my mind. That one of them happened back in 2014 in the sentencing. One happened just the other day. And I want to share those with you, and they speak to what you're talking about how we feel about victims and how we're providing for victims. The one back in 2014 was a grandfather who spoke at a sentencing. See, his grandson had just been shot 3 times in the back of the head. He was murdered because a gang member in Madera felt that he had disrespected him. So he came up behind him at a party and shot him 3 times in the head. And the grandfather said, "Judge, I want justice." I had a case recently here in Bass Lake, just 2 weeks ago, where a lady who had just dropped her daughter off at a bus stop was heading to work, was thinking about what was going to happen at work. And a person who was riding and had a blood alcohol level of 0.12 crossed over a double yellow line and hit her. She started the day, headed off to work. She ended the day with the 3-inch rod in her leg and 12 screws in her leg. And the worst part about that wasn't the physical injuries for her. The worst part of her injuries were the emotional scars. This happened 3 years ago. The sentencing was just the other day. But the incident happened 3 years ago. And she explained how she can't sleep at night anymore. She has her daughter sleep with her because she wakes up suffering from post-traumatic stress from that incident. That's one of the victims. Another of the cases was the father of a 10-year-old sexual assault victim who was assaulted by a relative who should be protecting her. And the father said the same thing these other 2 victims said, I want justice. And the reason I say I feel anemic about this is because I can't give you justice. Justice would make the hurt go away. I can't do that. Justice would make you not have to wake up in the middle of the night crying. That would be justice. I can't do that. All I can do is sentence somebody to prison and order restitution. And it's hollow. And that's why I feel anemic sometimes when I'm sentencing people. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good sending a 20-year-old kid to prison for the rest of his life. It doesn't feel good because not only does it affect him and his family, but it leaves the victim empty. I can do something about this. I know that a problem exists at that point. I know that the building's unsafe. I've been told that by security experts who have looked at the building and said there's nothing we can do with this building. What I don't want to do is look out at a sentencing at a victim at a crime that I could have prevented if I closed that building, and I didn't do it. There are times when I sense that I can't do anything about it. I can't make a victim whole. But by preventing a violent crime at the courthouse at Bass Lake, I can prevent another victim from being created. And I'm committed to that. Do I want to have it closed? No. I live up here. I want to have a courthouse up here. We will have a courthouse up here. If we can cooperate together as a community, together as a county, as a state government, and get one built up here, that as it's currently situated, as it's currently constructed, it's not going to work. It's not worth creating more vacancies. So Ms. Rodriguez, you and I are on the same page. We feel the same way. We're serving the same community. Closing the courthouse wasn't our intention to shortchange victims. It's not. Closing the courthouse is designed to not create new victims. Those are my thoughts.
There you go.
I'd like to know what alternative buildings you have possibly looked at in this short period of time since you decided to close, and what would the modifications approximately, or have you looked at the cost for those things? Also, as far as the remote court appearances from here, what facilities here would be required to take and have a site large enough, a facility competent to handle that kind of a thing?
Thank you. Again, all good questions. Let me go back to the victim witness person, Ms. Rodriguez, that had some questions. We've asked the county to look at providing additional funds to victim witness, especially in light of the needs up here and the closing of the courthouse. So hopefully they're looking at that. There's grants that are provided. Perhaps there's additional funds that can be provided to help those victims get to where they need to get and do so in a timely fashion. As far as looking at other buildings, we haven't looked at other buildings as far as them being used as a courthouse. Their courthouse construction and the requirements of the state law provisions are such that basically you're going to have to build a new building or take an old building and do substantial demo and reconstruction. As far as the facility for the remote, we've looked at and talked to the county about using the Bass Lake substation, the Oakhurst substation. They have facilities there. They have rooms available. We're looking at what facilities we would need in the form of IT and video and how to get that connected to our facilities in Madera. So we're looking at that, and that's something that we feel that we can do. We have enough resources with the help of the county to get that done fairly quickly, and initially use it for traffic trials, traffic trials, see how it works, and then maybe increase it for other things that don't require testimony. They're basically motions and proceedings and appearances that would eliminate the need for folks to go all the way down to Madera. And then again, we're looking at the bus transportation to get folks down there. Did that answer all of your questions?
Well, one of the things specifically is you can't have a building anymore that will allow direct access by a vehicle. So you'll see, even a Target, right? You can't even drive a vehicle up to a Target, okay, those big red balls, you know what I'm talking about, those big red concrete balls. Well, that's not there for decoration. That's there for security. And at Bass Lake, who's been to Bass Lake recently? And driven around the back half of the courthouse. Right? So you could literally drive a vehicle into the courthouse and out the front door. I mean, you could. You'd have to make a tight turn, but it can be done. And that's just unsafe. It's not feasible anymore.
You have a question back here?
So,
Stated that, I'm just going to talk because I have a loud voice anyway. You were looking at,
Use microphone.
you were stating that you were looking at all different avenues for funding for the courthouse. Why didn't you come to the community first?
Thank you.
okay, I'll tell you what.
And, okay, you're talking about driving through the courthouse and back.
I have an answer to that.
Wait, if you take steel posts and fill them full of concrete, you take them down 2.5, 3 feet. That'll solve that problem right there. And it doesn't cost that much to do. So, but if you're looking for other avenues for funding, why didn't you come to us first instead of going through all the other rhetoric and then telling us 60 days before you're closing the courthouse?
County bonds won't build a courthouse. The bonds have to be state bonds. They have to be state construction.
You can have donations.
So, no, they're not donations. You
No,
can't
no,
do
no.
it that way.
Why can't you come to the community?
So you want an answer, or do you want? Okay, so the construction has to be by the state. Now, if it were just planting a couple of posts in front of the door, and that would alleviate the building, certainly we would have done that. But it runs deeper than that. In order to build a safe facility, in order to have a safe facility, that building has to be raised and a new building constructed. That's why we've gone to the state and asked to be put on the list that Judge Silvani mentioned to provide for the construction of the building. It's not like building a building like we're in right now. There are specifications that we legally have to meet. It's not just putting a couple of red bulbs out in front of the courthouse and saying, okay, we're done.
Then why didn't you do it when you built the sheriff station?
We talked about doing that when we built the sheriff station. We didn't have the funding for that.
We'll get a lady in the back that are angry. Why don't we get her question? If you want to ask a question, just raise your hand and
Thank you.
the microphone will come up and we'll all hear you.
In an article just this year in May in the Sierra Star, it says here that we have generated $283.7 million in Madera County alone from tourism. Why isn't that money being utilized for our courthouse?
I can't speak to that.
More than that, that money goes to the state and the county, and they have other needs for it.
I'm sorry, but if you don't take care of the county or the community, tourists aren't going to come.
The court does not control or have access to those funds. We've approached the people that do have access to the funds, and they're indicating they're not available.
Okay, but the transient occupancy tax is responsible for $500,000 each year, so why is it being given to some company to build a conference center when we don't have a courthouse?
I don't give those funds to anyone
why are we here?
I don't know, I was invited.
You don't know? Maybe you shouldn't be answering questions.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Teresa Kennedy, and one of the things about the courthouse in Bass Lake is that it was never meant to be a superior court. It was built as a municipal court. And so somehow in Madera County's wisdom, they changed it to a superior court, which is now inadequate. I've heard a lot of talk today about safety, and I live directly adjacent to the Bass Lake Government Center, okay, 100-yard dash. I have never felt unsafe there, okay? If that building is abandoned, I will feel unsafe, okay? And what I would like to know, Tom Miller owns my property, what do you plan to do about that? Because there was an abandoned sheriff's building up there, the roof is falling off, it wasn't in good repair when they were there, now it's falling apart, and just to have weed eating done is a major ordeal to get Madera County to do anything. I'm really concerned if that building is abandoned and there's not other services that are going in there, what's going to happen to it?
We haven't had any discussion about that at all because this has hit us as staff too. We have no plans right now. We haven't even, like I said, haven't been on our agenda. So I do not know what that building will be done. Like I said, we got the land down here to do a government center. That's when we did that. So we're going to be out of the way of the Bass Lake. So whatever happened up there, we know it wasn't safe. I mean, they told us that. Like I said earlier, the way we got over me, it's at least 10 years ago. I think we did that. You guys remember doing this modification we did. And this hit us just as fast as it did everybody here. And so what we do with it, I have no idea. I can't speak for the board members. I can't speak for our staff until we have it on the agenda and see what we can and can't do.
Thanks, Candace. I just want some clarification on the timeline on how this all came about. It's unclear to me. It sounds like very sudden, that you're saying 10 years ago, so I'm kind of confused as to how this decision was made in the process it went through. For instance, when it was decided, okay, apparently it's been unsafe for a long time. So at what point decided to become so unsafe we can't do it now? So can you clarify that for me, please?
Would you please state your name and stuff?
Jeff Dorsey.
What was it?
Jeff Dorsey.
Just when you speak, say your name, please.
I'll take that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
No, we can't hear you.
How's
Does
that?
anybody know how to speak in a microphone?
Is that better? Is that better? No, I'm with you. You know, I'm with you. Believe me. You know, I know what you're talking about. It's trying to hear things in part. You know, it's hard to drown out all the peripheral noise sometimes. But okay. So to address that question as to when we found out, we were approached by a county agency who told us that, and it was Department of Corrections, they told us that they believed that the building was unsafe for their officers transporting prisoners from the holding facility, which used to be the sheriff's holding cell, through the public areas into the courthouse. That's the process. The cells are where the old sheriff's substation used to be. Do you know where that's at?
Yes.
It's on the exact opposite side of the building as the courthouse. So the Department of Corrections came to us early in 2018 and said, what can you do to address this issue? Because we feel that our officers are at risk when they're taking a defendant from that holding area to the courtroom. So to address that issue and to find out what we needed to do to make it safe and what steps we could take to make it safer, we contacted the Judicial Council. And that's when the Judicial Council sent out their security experts in April of this year to look at the facility and give us their opinion on what needed to be done to make it a safe facility.
in April, they issued a report. And the report was focused primarily on the transport of prisoners, but the safety concerns are equally prevalent in other types of proceedings as well. So we learned about it. We learned about the extent of the security issues in April, and we began looking at avenues to address them. As Judge Soldani said, we looked at state funding first. They said that the state told us, not only are you not on the list, but we're not going to put you on the list for a new facility. And then we went to the county and asked for the county's help. But by the time we got an understanding of what it was going to cost to improve that building, it made it unfeasible to continue, or to think that we would be able to make some retrofittings and modify the building in a way that would make it safe. We've known since April.
Where's that report? I'd like to see that report, and I'd like to know when you talk to the county, because Tom Wheeler's telling me it's not even been on their agenda.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you.
Resident since 1959.
I'll tell you why that report's not available. Because in that report, they tell us several ways on which the building can be attacked. So what we're not going to do is make that available and say, here's some great ideas, guys. You want to break one of your friends out? Here's the plan.
The construction issues would not address that. The state escape plan, if you gave us a list of those things that needed to be repaired, you don't need to tell us how they're going to escape. Just tell us as the public what has to be done to our building in our county to make it safe.
Okay.
And why wasn't Tom Wheeler aware of it when you said you went to the county? Is he not part of that county issue?
They didn't give us a list. They didn't say do this, this, and this. What they said is this building cannot be made safe. That's what they said. There was no list. It was this building cannot be made safe.
We have a question back here with the mic.
From April.
So we did go to the county, we contacted them. We didn't contact Tom. We contacted administration, assuming that they would let Tom know what was going on. And we didn't. And we published and contacted Tom at the same time we contacted administration. We didn't. Tom came along a little bit later, and we've been working with that ever since.
Question back here.
So, hi, my name is Nicole. Hi, my name is Nicole Porter. I'm Jeff Gorski's daughter. So I'm just wondering, if it was kind of known since April and you just found out 60 days ago, were you just not planning on like saying anything and letting us find out, or just not bringing it up at all and then just doing it on the whim?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
So like, if they got known in April, you know, I guess when like the report came out and like the corrections, were you gonna say, hey, you guys, by the way, Department of Corrections says that this building's not safe? Or were you guys just gonna plan on like not saying anything, letting us know what you guys are planning on doing, and then telling us what you told us? Or were you guys gonna give us a heads up and now we're just kind of like out?
I'll try to answer that. So April, when we got the report, as I recall, we then immediately looked for avenues short of closing the facility. We tried our best efforts to find resources and things that we could do. And we came to the point where it wasn't going to happen. So at that point, we decided to close it, and then we sent out a notice that it was closing.
Hello, Teresa Wilson from Bass Lake and also from the Bass Lake Chamber of Commerce. I have 3 questions, and the questions just keep piling up as we have discussion. Was it at all considered to do a temporary close until some sort of financial remedy was available to us, or another site? Because it seems to me that it would be easier to reopen on a temporary rather than on a permanent close.
So I don't know that there's a difference. When you close it, you close it. And if there's a facility that we have the funds to provide another facility, we'll pursue that with great vigor and open it at that time.
I'm just thinking about the procedure and the process.
Yeah,
to
it's not,
start anew rather than to postpone.
And there's no difference between a temporary closure and a closure is closed. Ask the people that try to get into the building and have their cases heard there. It's closed.
Okay. My second question is, what was the state's reason for not putting us on the list, for declining?
You're asking me to tell you what the state's motives are?
Yes.
I'm giving up trying to figure out what the state does about anything. I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know. It's a fairly large bureaucracy, for what you said through. And they've got 58 counties, and they're building courthouses in Long Beach and San Diego. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these facilities. And so when they hear from us here in the large metropolis of Madera County, they're not impressed.
Yes, okay.
Money talks.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we just got $100 million for a new courthouse in Madera, and it's like, okay, we've already.
Okay, so my third question is about law enforcement and how law enforcement is going to be impacted now, not only with taking them off the road to go down to Madera, should they not be able to do this through video conferencing, but also that creates a public safety issue. Has the state looked at the additional costs it will now cost us here to maintain law enforcement on the roads?
I don't believe they have, but you're going to have a lot of officers driving back and forth, so I guess there'll be more enforcement. I don't know.
Then they can make more money.
This young lady has another question. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know if the judicial report rendered any kind of an estimate on what a replacement for that facility would be.
I don't believe it did. No. No dollar amounts.
Robert Guerrero. I'm a retired iron worker by trade, and since 9/11, we've done some courthouse buildings, and the engineering on those is phenomenal for a safety factor, like you talked about. So since 9/11, has this just been mismanaged and the deferred maintenance has just gone by the wayside? Because as a homeowner, you know your roof needs repairing at a certain time. You need, your exterior walls need to be painted. So was this just mismanaged by the state, or was something overlooked here why this didn't get, okay, this year we need safety glass. This year, next year we got it in the budget to put the safety bollards in there. Well, why wasn't this looked at?
Can I ask that question? The skeleton of that building won't support the security measures that are in place in courthouses.
It's called retrofitting.
No, it is, but what it's called is raising that building, basically. We addressed, back when Tom talked to Judge Whelan 10 years ago, I think it was 2011 actually, 2011, when he talked about retrofitting the building, the Judicial Council came out and said, we need ballistic glass all around the courthouse. But we can't, the skeleton of that courthouse will not support the weight of ballistic glass. So you'd have to take the walls down, put walls up that are substantial enough to support that type of a security glass, and the cost of that would be tantamount to tearing the building down and starting over.
No more questions.
I just
push the button. Keep pushing. There you go.
Okay. If I can just address, I believe the question was, if I understood part of it is, how come we weren't aware of it, or how come the state wasn't aware of it sooner? Part of it is because of the design of the building or the courthouse at the time. BSCC, Madam Perez, I'm the Director of Corrections. I operate and run the jail. And we were the ones that brought the issue up. But it wasn't just something we just brought up. We've been bringing it up for a while. But part of it is BSCC does all our inspections in all our institutions, including the courthouse. The new courthouse, the Bass Lake substation, the jail, the prisons, juvenile halls. They have not been coming to Bass Lake courthouse because of the standard. It's below standard, so they would not come and do an inspection. Part of it is because there's only 2 cells there, and it has no ADA updates or requirements. So there wasn't really anything for them to come to inspect because of the age of the building. The courts continue to operate.
Come back. Hello? Well, I can speak a little louder. We've been bringing prisoners up to the jail. I just want to mention, we will do what we're told. You know, we're here to serve you. Our job to transporting prisoners.
Again, you know, we're going to do what we're told, to bring prisoners up here. But you got to understand also that we have a standard on how we treat our prisoners. And when the temperature is over 100 degrees in a van, because there's only 2 cells and you have 15 prisoners, I can honestly tell you that it's inhumane to keep somebody in the vehicle. Okay? But we do what we have to do. We try to get them through the process quickly, and then we try to get them back to the facility. But also, we're talking about facility. Drinking water and restrooms is a big, big issue. When we're talking about safety, we're talking about your safety. I'll say behind the young lady.
When she was talking about she's a 100-yard dash, I've been the transportation sergeant at the courthouse. And I did everything in my power so that they didn't make it to her home.
So we take that very seriously. We're talking about safety and security because there's no fences. People can come up to those vans when we're taking them to the court because we're transporting them to the courthouse. If there's a problem at the courthouse, our time is there. They're not in the van watching the prisoners in there. There is a big, big risk. But understand, the risk is the community. We're not just talking about safety of the staff that are working there. We're talking about
Your safety. And we cannot take that lightly. So I am glad, and I'm glad my staff have done everything to prevent that 100-yard dash. Because that's what we're there for.
That's what we're there for. And I agree with the judge. I don't see anybody here being a victim because we know that is below standard when it comes down to the safety of that facility.
I think I was next. Mark Sobel. You guys considered allowing a limited use of the court that does not include people who are in custody or juries? Those would seem to be.
We have. Here's the issue.
Can't hear you.
There you go. How are we doing? I'm gonna break you to karaoke. When the courthouse was built, I think Teresa Kennedy said it was built as a justice court. That's what it was. And justice court matters were small claims matters, and they were there was no family law. There was no emergency protective orders. There were no felony jury trials. It was a misdemeanor court. It was a traffic court. It was a small claims court, essentially. That's what that building was built for. When the state of California consolidated the courts and made all courts into a single superior court, then the court's scope of services expanded. And that naturally expanded into more volatile matters. Okay? So the question is, why don't we just go back to a traffic court? Why don't we just go back to small claims? Well, it seems like it makes sense, but folks, we're in a different world than we were when the court started in business. I want to show you something. On August 14, 2012, a person drove up to the back side of the courthouse. You know the back door, the back glass doors that are right next to the courtroom? And he set out a propane tank.
Nobody was.
And he detonated the propane tank. And the propane tank blew out the back window, caused flames to come into the area where, had it gone off when people were getting ready for court or waiting to go into the courtroom, they would have been injured, I assure you. I have photographs if you want to come see the damage caused by the bomb. Now, was that person a felon who was upset about something that happened with the court? No. That person had just been charged with a traffic violation a week before. The bomb went off August 14th. A traffic violation was filed against him on August 7th. You cannot predict unpredictable events. So to say, oh, we're safe with just traffic up there, we're not. We're not. If anybody thinks that family law is more safe than dealing with a criminal, a felon, somebody who's facing state prison, the statistics do not bear that out. In 2011, 12, there was a family law hearing at the Bass Lake Courthouse. There was a recess for lunch. The attorney and her client drove to Ducey's to have lunch. In the parking lot of Ducey's, the attorney was murdered as she was getting out of her car. The husband, who was involved in the hearing that was just heard at Bass Lake, chased his wife into Ducey's where he murdered her. It didn't happen at the courthouse, but it was a court-related, and the issue is the things we deal with, folks, are volatile. You have people who are generally good people who make monumentally bad decisions when they're put under stress. This person who committed the offenses, he wasn't a hardened criminal. He had no criminal record. He was a retired fire captain from Los Angeles City Fire Department.
He was affected by corrupt family
He and his wife were involved in a very heated dissolution of marriage. And it led for him to make a decision that ended 2 lives. You can't predict who's going to be the one who's going to step over the edge, and you can't predict what kind of case it is. Could be a traffic case, could be a family law case. Could be that father who just feels that the process is moving too slow, and he needs to take justice into his own hand because one of his children was assaulted. And in the process of taking justice into his own hands, he puts everybody else in that courthouse at risk along with his target. Now,
I don't see how any of that had to do with the safety of the courthouse, but moving on.
It sounds like you're wasting time, so you don't have to listen to us. But $100.2 million in 2002 to 2012, or excuse me, 2012 to 2015 was spent on the Madera County Courthouse. Why was that money not even thought about to share with Eastern Madera County? You have state-of-the-art air conditioning. You have projectors in all 10 of your courtrooms. You have, remote-controlled air conditioning and that, but you couldn't give any money to this courthouse?
the courthouse in Madera was built to address the specific needs of our county.
This is our county.
Well, it is, and I'm not suggesting that it's not.
It
but
is.
But that court was built to address the specific needs of our county. What we can't do is say, let's cut the corner here on this courthouse, and let's put the money over here. That's not the way it is.
No, but you can share with the county.
What the county does.
And do we need to become separated from you guys? Because
what the state does.
Yeah, it sounds to me like we need to separate ourselves from you guys because you don't care about us at all.
That's just not true.
If you care more about the tourists than you do the people.
Miss, let him answer the question.
No, I'm fed up with this county. You guys don't care about our community.
So would you like an answer to your question?
No, I want you to do something about it.
Next question.
The question's up here.
Hi. So I'm new back in this county, but my question is, this is what I don't understand.
He said 10 years ago he knew about this, and nothing until April he said about it. Why?
We caught the conference center.
We didn't know about the extent of.
50%. I'm not even really addressing you, I'm addressing our representative here, and why hasn't that been dealt with in all of these years? Nothing's happened.
I explained it earlier. When they done that report, it was not this type. Let me finish, okay? I'll ask. Keep being respectful, people. They're here to try to help you. You interrupt and do all that, we're not going to get no place. Please. When that report came out, it did not address the stuff. I don't know if Manuel had been complaining then or not. They didn't, the Justice, what is it, it comes up, the Justice Council did not say anything about that. All they said is the things that we corrected. And if it was, that stuff would have been in, we probably would have been all working on it right now. We didn't know that. We didn't know that, man. That's just, if I'd known it, we would, that's what the judge told me. We wanted to know what we could do as a county. So I put it on the agenda and we took care of it. But we just found out about this too, just in April, that this was that another problem. So, and we had a couple questions right here. They've been raising hands. You did, and you got the two. Who's got the mic?
I can talk.
Okay. But then these two were next. They've been raising their hands for a long time. No, go ahead, Diana. Go ahead, you got the mic.
Hi. I'm not here to beat up on any of you guys. I know you're the judges and you didn't make these. You were the ones, I'm assuming, didn't make this decision. Or did you?
Your name?
Name, Diana.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Diana Firestone.
They did.
They did.
Yes, it was Judge Saldani's ones I the judge, and they did.
Hey, you got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. What I, and I just want to get back to it. What I'm concerned about is when we're talking about safety, and yes, safety is very important for everybody, not just the criminals or the people working in the courthouse. My concern was when I first heard about this, was realizing that I've only been up here a little over 40 years. Love all of you. But we have a very large elderly population. And so I'm concerned about their safety. I'm concerned about their safety driving down these icy roads and something happening, somebody getting hurt, going to and from jury duty day after day after day. So I know that there's been a lot of hypotheticals thrown around. I understand that. Bad things happen everywhere. But when these people go to jury duty now and get hit on that road, and inevitably that hypothetical will happen, what do you say to that? What about their safety? Not the criminals, their safety. And then I also want to know, can you get a suspension from jury duty for the people up there, seen as in most counties in California, you don't have to go more than 25 miles out of where you live.
So let me address something. If you folks live, anybody here from Barstow? Have you ever tried to get up over the over Deadwood and Chico Saddle in the wintertime? Would it be safer to go to Madera or to get to Bass Lake Court over the ice and the snow?
You still have to go past those.
So there are things to look at both ways. Those folks that are south of that area are safer going to Madera in the wintertime, just to tell you that. In the wintertime, is when there's ice and snow on the road, and I've done it, it's difficult to get across there. And I've seen people off the road from various sites. So, next question.
Yes,
What about the older?
I understand that.
What about the older folks? Let's talk about jury service.
If
Anybody?
you go into Bass Lake though, please understand that's a lot, a nice congested road. People can go slower, they can take their time a lot easier than they can with somebody on their tail going down 41. And I won't say another word.
Oh, so jury service, anybody here 70 or older? All right. So you get your jury summons, you write on the back of it, sorry, I can't do jury service, I have medical issues or whatever, you're done. Send it back in, you're done.
I'm over 70, and I do enjoy doing jury duty, and that would be the only criteria that I don't want to go down there.
How many times have you been?
To eliminate all of us up here?
How many times have you been called up on jury duty at Bass Lake Court?
I've only been one time. The rest of us all in Madera.
Okay.
Exactly.
There's a reason.
So you're already going to Madera for jury service.
Yeah.
We have a question.
To address an issue on the reason why you're not called to Bass Lake as much is because over the past, what was it?
10 years.
10 years, we've averaged 2 jury trials at Bass Lake a year.
Wow.
So that's why you don't get called to Bass Lake. There are only 2 jury trials. If you get a summons to Bass Lake, you have a much better likelihood of being called off and not having to show up than you do having to show up with only 2 trials a year. That's why you end up with the Madera more than you do Bass Lake. Sir, you had a question?
I'm Andy Hutchison. I had a bunch of different questions. Some of them have been answered and some of them are kind of unanswerable. I'm just curious now, do you have an idea how many of those incidents that you're talking about per year or per month or whatever happen?
Well, when you say per year, per month, it depends on the type of incident that you're talking about. If you're talking about bombs exploding, we've had several bomb threats. We've had 1 bomb explosion at Bass Lake. Does it happen every day? No, certainly it doesn't. But it really doesn't have to happen every day. It has to happen one time where somebody's hurt, and then we're going to look back and we're going to say, we should have done something. At the end of the day. You know, what I don't want to be lost in this is that nobody invited this. Judge Saldani and I didn't sit around in our offices saying, you know, let's go kick a hornet's nest in Eastern Madera County. Let's go do that. That's what I want to do. It's not. You know, Dodgers are playing right now.
Boston.
Right? But you know, folks, the idea is not to create a problem for my neighbors, for the people who I live around. The idea is to not make them victims. If it happens one time, and there's 1 victim created, that's 1 too many. And we've been lucky, except for the murders, right? We've been lucky up to this point. It's feasible. Sir, you go along. I can hear you, Sherry.
I bet you can.
I'm Sherry Mount, and I've been a resident of Syria since 1959. I've gone through all the changes. I did escape the president to start to develop my career, but my career has been family law for 30 years. And Judge Blay and I practiced for a while. And the very man that he says murdered Judy Soley was my client, and Dale Blake was my office partner when I fired him because I felt that he was a risk. So I know intimately what it's like to have a friend like Judy Soley get killed at Bass Lake Court.
For many of you, this thing is the worst. And for many of you, you thought it was me because I was the only female family law attorney up here at the time, so my family was really good for that. I could probably just talk to the guys in that.
But the population that I have going to court every day is not criminals, and I really don't care, make the criminals go to Madera. That is, you know, they did it, they didn't do it, whatever, that situation is entirely different from what the situation that most people here in eastern Madera County would have to go to court for. What the people up here have to go to court for, I'm not even involved with that. What the people up here have to go to court for primarily is issues involving probate. Their loved one has died, they're older, they're trying to figure out their estate. Assessment of risk, practically yes. These folks just want to go into court, file whatever's necessary and get it done. Okay, for that same person now, if this is eliminated up here, that same little old lady whose husband died has to drive to Madera to file the documents. Then she has to come back. And then she has to go back down there for every appearance in this probate matter that may take several appearances. Okay, so that is many trips by this little old lady that I don't want to see on the road. The second thing that I have as a family law attorney is I have families. These people didn't do anything except they're part of the 60 to 70% of the population that's going to get divorced. For these people, they see me up here, I try to serve my clients in my community. I have to take those documents down to Madera to file them. And I can't file them and get a court date. I have to go down there and leave them, and the court then has to sign them. Then I have to drive down there and pick them up and bring them up here and arrange for service. Then my clients, and that is all at a big cost to my clients, because I am not Walmart and I am not cheap. So then, but I do have runners and such like that. But nonetheless, my runner's running down the highway, so there's another person who's not likely to ride it. So then they have to go to court. And family law matters, you just don't go down there and it's done. You have to go time and time again. Sometimes Madera County Family Court Services doesn't have the report. So my family, husband and wife, go down to Madera to find out that Family Court Services didn't do it and have to come back. I would say that my family law cases, on average, take no less than 5 appearances in Madera. That means 5 mommies and daddies are going down there, and for all of these things. It's going to cost people more in Madera County to get divorced, and it's going to cost more in terms of traffic and all these people on the road. My question is, the report that I see right here was 10 years ago. So who's asleep at the wheel? It's August 16, 2016, there's a whole report here. The windows are $360,000, the exterior windows. Okay, so somebody's been asleep at the wheel for 12 years here. Then they get a report in April, and nothing is released to anybody. In fact, Tom Whitaker says it's not even been put on their agenda. And yet this action has to happen now. Let's do it now. Well, I don't think that that's the best way to handle it. And have you considered perhaps not closing it, but keeping the clerks of the court up there so you can file things up there? Have you considered perhaps not having criminals come up here, but continuing to have the low-risk services available up here, while this community gets their feet, their heads together to do something? But this 60-day notice is ridiculous on any kind of action that this dramatic. Really
This time next year, you won't have to leave your office or your home to file documents. You don't really have to do that now if you have a fax machine. You can fax file your documents. But by this time next year, we've been working on, we will have in place, e-filing. Now, not only...
Okay, so why not delay this for a year so that we can have that time?
Sharon, if we know, I'm just saying, you talked about limited services and having people in family law and probate matters file up here. And what I tried to explain, maybe I didn't do a very good job of it, was that you can't predict where the risk is coming from. If somebody who's upset about having a traffic matter filed against them sets a pipe bomb outside, or sets a propane cylinder, sets a bomb outside their window, and blows the window out of the courthouse, how how do you say what is a safe proceeding and what isn't? I think that anybody who thinks that a family law proceeding is a safe proceeding is kidding themselves. And as far as probate proceedings go, statistics show that there are assaults that happen in probate matters as well. When people get upset about a ruling on a distribution of assets issue, on a guardianship issue, on any of those issues. What we do with folks is a volatile business. And it sometimes forces good people to make bad decisions. And so the question is, let's keep it open until we can get e-filing in place and until we can get our feet on the ground and get a new building built. A new building is not going to be built in a year. If we started it tomorrow, it wouldn't be built in a year. What we don't want to do is wait for a year, and sometime within that year, what we know will happen at some point happens. That's the issue. You know, we don't want to close Bass Lake. We don't want to close Bass Lake.
But you are.
But it's better to close a building than have somebody injured because it wasn't closed. And it's a little frustrating for me. I got to tell you that can't be understood. Yeah.
So I got a question. My name is John Perro from Milwaukee. It sounds like from everything I've heard tonight, the funding for this basically is state funding. There's no county money.
That's correct.
So my question is two things. If there was a donor or we raised money like we did with the animal shelter out here off Highway 49, if, let's say, we raised, I don't know, so two parts. How much is this going to cost to rebuild the building? Number two is, if the money was raised locally, could you even use that money, or would it have to be state money?
I don't have an answer with what the state would do with local money. My feeling is that if we were to raise money locally and give it to the state, they'd put it into a high-speed rail or something.
Oh, yeah. Great.
I don't have a great deal of faith in what the state is going to do with our money. You know, I don't want to get political about that. You know, I threw that out there because. It's true. Okay, all right. You guys agree on that? Can we agree on that? Yeah. All right. Perfect. We've made progress.
Coach Shetler and then Teresa. My name is Bill Shetler, and the conclusion that I am hearing, and I think all of you are hearing, it's a done deal. The courthouse is going to close on the 30th of October or November. There's not a darn thing that we can do or say that's going to make any difference. It's going to close. So the question, and everybody has raised many reasons why it should stay open. So if we work from the premise that we need a court facility in this area, in the Bass Lake, Oakhurst area, the question is, what can we do about it? And the question that I would ask Mr. Wheeler is, what can we do, we as the people, the residents of this community, what can we do to supply the need that we all recognize we have? Doesn't make any difference to cry about it because we can't do it. It's going to close. But where can we go from here? What is the steps that we can take that we can wind up at some time in the future? How far in the future, and what's it going to cost, and how can we go about getting it done? I think those are the questions that I have, and I'd like to have an answer if anybody can give me one.
We partner together. Instead of being here and opposing one another, we partner together. We partner as a court, we partner as a county, we partner as members of the community, and we bring our needs to the state. That's what we do. And we make people aware of the same things that you folks you're addressing here. Those aren't, you talk about, you asked the question, why was it since April? You guys knew since April. Because we had these conversations. We as judges and as court administration sat in conference rooms and discussed the very issues that you folks are raising here. And that's why it took so long, because we were going over these issues and we were trying to resolve the issues for ourselves. As far as the judge, we partnered together. That's my answer.
Teresa Wilson.
Teresa Wilson. Push the button. Hello. Push again. My question is for Tom Wheeler. Tom, Judge Saldani earlier said that they contacted the administration of the county who did not bring it to your attention. And then you mentioned you knew it since April or May. So why wasn't it brought to the community if you had knowledge of that since May?
Well, I didn't know it then. I just found out at the same time you did. Somebody put it on Facebook and that's how I found out.
But if the administration but I just want to clarify, because Judge Saldani said that the administration was contacted. So who in the administration was contacted that didn't share that information with you? And when did that occur?
I was going to ask you that.
Thank you.
Answer it again. Ask it again. It wasn't in April when they got a hold of our administration. It was, I don't know what month it was, but it was months after that. I don't remember, they don't remember, but we had a meeting with our administration with them just last week. 6 months ago, not 3 months ago, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, we had a meeting with them. And they explained all this to us, and they did talk to our administration, and the dollar amount that they were talking about is what our administration told us, that we don't have that kind of money to do that. We've been trying to go to the new DA's office down there about the same time that they started with the state courts, because that building they're in was built in the 1900s, 1920, I mean, 30s, and that's where the DA office is now, where the courts used to be. And it's not even safe. We've actually had to put guards in now. Sally's shaking her head, so that we can protect our DAs. So it took us probably, we've been working, I think we started about, let's see, 4 years ago, probably 6 years ago, buying the property, we put the DA property on, the building on. We just last week made the deal to buy the last piece of building on that. 6 years later is where we're gonna build that. And then we also, when we got that deal done, we also directed staff now to start going out and see where we can find funding and start designing. It don't happen overnight. That court, when I first got elected in 2006, I started in 7, I think Gary's here, they wanted the land where our old garage was and down where the court is right now. They started doing that process before I got elected. They just finished the court, what, 3 years ago? 3, 4, whatever it's been. You know, 3 years ago. So it don't happen overnight. Building don't work that way. I worked for Wiley, and he come up on the weekend and said, hey, I want that barn built. I started the next week. It don't happen over here at all. Get that in your head, because it does not happen. And it takes years to do it. I think they started when Gary's on the board too. Gary, I hope you don't mind, Gary Gilbert's there, was there 8 years before I got elected. They started talking about building new social service buildings down there. And we broke ground this year on them. So that's been at least 14, 15 years to build that social service building. And that building has cracks in it that wide that you can see into the rooms that they're in right now. So it's just bad. It's probably worse than the court up there that was built in the 74th. Right now, all the new rules since I've been elected to build a house is added almost $20,000 to $30,000 before you can move in. Sprinklers, fireproof roofing, siding, decking. There are so many new things in there that the new ADA laws. We had, I forgot what we spent on the library. I think it was like $300,000 to make that ADA approved at our county library in Madera. And so it probably costs that much just to do that for up here at Ashley. The new rules and stuff that they do to us, the state, just like they're doing this to us, we don't control. And they are, that's the reason everybody's leaving California. You can't afford to live here. I know that. which is crazy. I hope that answers your question, but if we would have known about it sooner, we probably would have been partnering, just like Dale said, to try to figure out what we could do. This all came up quick. Manuel was worried about his prisoners. He's came to us, even in a brand new jail. We had to remodel some of that brand new jail because we found out those prisoners, they're not stupid. If they think there's a little crack that they can get out, they're going to figure out how to get out. If there's a little crack that they can grab that corrections officer and choke him to death, they will do it. These people are desperate. You don't know what they're going to do. And so we got to protect them. And that's the reason Manuel did it. He didn't do this just because he wanted to close it, didn't want to drive up and down here. That's not his problem. His problem is his officer safety. Their problem is their people in their courtroom safety and you and I when we're there. Because if we're in that courtroom and this guy comes in and killed the woman and that lawyer, he couldn't go in there and shot everybody in that room. And that's that one officer we have in here, Madera first.
Thank you, Tom. We're running short on time, folks, so we've got time for just a couple more questions. Sally?
Okay, I just want to say, before starting, again, I think we're a little bit crying over spilled milk. It seems like it's a done deal, and I'd like to find a way to move forward. So the first thing I'd like to do is let everybody know that if elected, the DA has space in that new building, and we'll do whatever we can in the new sheriff's department to offer our space and to offer our security to help with video conferencing. And we would absolutely ask, what I'm going to ask from you, Judge Saldana, and you, Tom, is if you'll commit to join a work group to find a way to decide which cases are going to be on there with the video conferencing, and I'd ask that Victim Services come, and Manny, that you come, so we can establish a priority of cases that we need to get going on the video conferencing, and that we establish a work group that meets on a monthly basis so that we don't get caught flat-footed like this in the future. That we can move forward working on getting that new government center and getting that funding together. Judge Saldani and Tom Wheeler, will you commit to joining that work group and meeting monthly with the District Attorney, Victim Services, Corrections, and all the other interested parties and getting this problem fixed?
Absolutely. I mean, monthly, all kinds of different projects. We meet monthly for the we meet monthly for the social services.
Thanks. And Judge Saldani, will you meet as well?
No, let me tell you what. We're currently investigating the process, what it's going to take, what the equipment is, a location, and then looking at the court rules and the statutes to see what we can do and what we can't do. Once we've done that, we'd be happy to sit down and work with anybody to try to get the maximum use out of the facility.
Thank you.
The lady over here, I believe was the next.
Gentlemen, white hair beard.
Quick question, my name's Helen Rome. This envelope's been distributed around here. Since this is senseless, can I put a new label on it and address this to the Judicial Council, and would that make any difference in telling us, getting an answer to how much this is going to cost, maybe how much money the state and the county could advance out of some of their newly found funds this year that went for different projects, and where to address it beyond just a Judicial Council?
Well, I think that's, Judge Lorraine mentioned earlier that the Judicial Council is forming a new list for capital improvement projects. And I think what you just addressed is the reason why, because there is more money devoted to the judicial branch than there has been in many years this year. So they're creating a new capital improvements list. And so, but before they finalize that list, they are going to go to all 58 counties. The council's going to go to all 58 counties. And they're going to evaluate needs. And if we can, as I indicated, partner together and convince the Judicial Council that the need in Eastern Madera County is a profound need for some of the reasons that were mentioned here today, we're going to stand a better chance as a county to be part of that list. Courtrooms, courthouses are not built by anybody but the Judicial Council. That's where the funding comes from. And that's the agency that we have to address to ensure that we have a safe courthouse in this part of the state. So, you want to put it on there? Judicial Council. I can't pronounce it, it's Sakayui. Send it to our Chief Justice, send it right to her. If you address it to the Judicial Council of California, it'll get there. In care of me, it'll come to me. In care of me, they'll return to sender.
Judge, but I'm just curious. How is it that the Mariposa County Courthouse is workable and our modern courthouse is not, after it was refurbished just not so long ago?
It's the only courthouse available in Mariposa County. It's the only courthouse that they have.
This is the only courthouse available in eastern Madera County. How is that?
Well, we're talking about the entire county in Mariposa. We're talking about Coulterville. We're talking about, was it Groveland? Is it Groveland? You know.
Okay, but you're saying that our court is not safe. How is the Mariposa court safe and ours is not?
Because they're not going to close a court. I can't speak to the Mariposa courthouse specifically because I don't know about the security issues that they've had to address and the provisions that they have in place. I know that you can't drive up to within 10 feet of the courthouse. I know that. I know that you can't place an explosive device within 50 feet of a courtroom. No, you can't. I mean, because everything's upstairs, right? No. Their courthouse is an upstairs courthouse. Okay, that's how long it's been since I've been to Mariposa. I can't address Mariposa's security issues or what they've done to address them. I do know that the Judicial Council is not going to close the only courthouse available to the residents of that county. I can tell you that.
We've got time for 2 more questions and that's it. Lady back.
Yes, I've been many times to the Bass Courthouse and I understand the concerns you're talking about with the hidden custodies. As a broader picture, when you're considering safety, everyone participates, the judges, the deputies, the public. Does the safety of the public weigh into the decision making? Because if you look at a bomb being placed outside the Bass Courthouse, that's far less likely to happen than an accident on 41. So is all of that taken into account or just the building itself?
So in making this decision, we looked at all of those issues and we decided that we cannot operate a courthouse that is unsafe, that has a substantial risk of harm to folks that work there, that use the facilities, and it's just not appropriate.
I will follow on the third row.
My name is John Cross. Given a fait accompli, can it be ameliorated by 2 things? Number 1, I don't understand court filings, okay? But can there be a court clerk up here in the facilities several days a week to take those? And number 2, I don't see why we can't afford an express bus almost right away, because if I take it as a juror, I don't get my money mileage. Yards. So that's funny to speak up like that. Take the yards.
All right, I'll take the second question first. I can't answer that regarding the bus and the transportation. Hopefully we can get that sooner than later. As far as having a person up here, as was indicated, we're in the process of developing a means for e-filing, doing it online, and you'll be able to do that, we believe, by this time next year. So that will take care of that. We believe that you can file via fax, although some people apparently disagree with that. So those are things that can be done. We're looking at the remote video center. That may require a court staff person be there for a portion of the week. If that's the case, we can look at perhaps filings occurring at that facility. So those are some things we can do. It's a good suggestion. Thank you. So that was the two questions we were going to answer.
I'm sure there would be a lot more questions if we had the time. Simply don't. We've been going at it for 2 hours. I'd like to express on behalf of the Bar Association our appreciation to Judge Saldana